Thank you.
You're live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the regular meeting of the City of Ojai Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, Thursday, April 7th, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Luis, will you call the roll?
Absolutely. Commissioner Firestone?
Present.
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Chair Taylor?
Present.
Commissioner Ruff?
Present.
Perfect. And Commissioner Ittner and Commissioner Walker, I'm currently seeing not joining us at the moment.
Thank you. Okay. Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Commissioner Wilson, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I'll try to do it this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which is the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay. And at this time, we will open up the meeting for public comments. I have one general comment.
And
There's speaker cards available if anyone joining us late needs to fill one out.
Okay. And Chair, I'd also like to go ahead and note we do have members of the public joining us via Zoom.
Oh,
Members
great.
of the public joining us via Zoom. At this point, if you'd like to go ahead and share a public comment not related to an agenda item, please use the raise the hand feature and we can call on you.
And how can we tell how many members of the public we have in our Zoom
So
queue?
I'll
Only
be
a-
able to go ahead and relay. At
Okay.
this time, we have 4.
4, great, okay, that's great. And any hand raise?
None at the moment. That has been reported.
Thank you. Okay. So these speaker cards are for 7A, so we'll hold off. I think we just have one general comment then,
Correct.
and that's for Tim Kraut,
Okay.
Ojai Valley Pickleball. Is that Inc.? Ojai Valley Pickleball Inc.? Or Incorporated, okay.
Incorporated. We ready?
Ready?
Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair, staff. I just want to give a brief update on the number of pickleball players we had last month, just the month of March. Adding only the weekday morning and afternoons for 23 days, the total was 709 players, which is an average of 30 people a day on one tennis court. Conversely, there were 559 people during the 23 days at the 8 Libby Park tennis courts, average of 24 people per day or 3 people per day per court. Secondly, I just wanted to mention there was some talk about possibly county personnel working with us on So Park. I talked to the County Deputy Director of Parks, John Coulter Chisholm. I asked if the county and the city had any agreements for the usage of So Park. He said there had been only informal talks, nothing in writing. I asked about waiving the entry fees at So Park. He said the entry fees is what funds the park. He also said that the existing concrete court surface at the park was in bad shape and probably needed to be replaced. He said unfortunately they had no money to replace it. He did mention that others have approached him about a second dog park. In closing, I just want to say it's starting to get hot out there, as we obviously know. Today it was 104 degrees. When I left the house to come up here at 5:24, it was 100 degrees. So if we had a place to play at night with lights in the evening when it's cooler, when working people can play when they're off, wouldn't that be nice? Any ideas? Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair, I would like to go ahead and note we had another community member join. They do have their hand raised. And
Great.
again, I'd like to go ahead and share a reminder. At this moment, it is public comments for items not on the agenda. With this, I still see the hand raised, so I will go ahead and bring that community member to go ahead and speak. And that is Miss Susan Stiffelman. Miss Stiffelman. Ms. Stiffelman, can you confirm that you can hear us, please?
Yes, I can, but would you prefer that I wait? It's not clear if I should speak about pickleball now or later.
Again, at this point, it is public comment for any items not on the agenda. If you have comments related to an agenda item, we could wait until that part.
Okay, yeah, I was confused because the other gentleman just spoke about pickleball, so I'm not sure where that fits. I'm out of town and I wanted to weigh in.
Okay.
We have pickleball agendized under 7A more as a informational item for an update from the ad hoc commission. But you're welcome to wait and give your comment then, or since you're live now, you're welcome to do it now. Well, either way, we'll certainly hear what you have to say.
Whatever, sure. I'm hoping the committee, will they hear this?
Yes, we're here.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So I live on South Signal. I just wanted to say that my husband and I did play pickleball until we were both injured. We appreciate the dilemma. We have nothing against it, but we are very strongly opposed to the location that was proposed in the lower Libby Park. Our house is at the top of that barranca. It would magnify and amplify everything. We can hear conversations from the bike path, and the sound of pickleball particularly is that sort of high-pitched, piercing sound. It would just completely change the tenor of our home life. We have friends who live near to the current courts who wait to go outside to have dinner until the play is over. Some of the players now are much younger, and we're really happy that people have this outlet, but they're screaming and cursing while they're playing, and we just don't see that the lower courts with so many neighbors impacted is a good option. We do appreciate the dilemma, but we are really, really urging and hoping that the city will look for an alternative to a residential neighborhood, particularly when, none of us on that street in that locale, it will change everything and disrupt sort of the peacefulness of it. And I guess that's about it, just to understand that it's not just a matter of the physical distance, but it's also the way sound travels. And we know that there have been lawsuits all over the country related to the sound of pickleball. And it's a sad thing because it's super fun. And we really hope that we can find a place that doesn't impact people's day-to-day lives. But hearing that whack and that yelling and the slam of the ball for hours and hours a day would completely and utterly change what brought us to our home. And we know that our neighbors feel very strongly in the same way, that they're really hopeful that the city will find an alternative so that we don't have to face what the people on Ventura have with all the efforts to mitigate the sound and that haven't really worked apparently. So that's what we want to say, and we appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And another general comment, Bill Miley.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Miley. My family and I moved here in 1968. I just wanted to compliment the Park and Recreation Department over the years for the bulletin. I'm not sure, it's not really a bulletin, it's a magazine that you put out. And when I first get it, it doesn't seem like it's from the city. It looks like it's from the state of California or something. It's so slick. And I'm not sure how many people tell you that, but it really is quality. The other thing I want to say, it has to do with the police report that you present to the commission. I think it's each month. And I read it over a second time just now. And it kind of gives you a character of what's happening in the various recreation areas or parks as to what kind of disturbance or crime, not much crime, or police activity. And I really like that. I'm not sure how many people read that. But I did read that the alarm system at Boyd Center was out of whack one day, and there were 4 calls. We used to have an alarm on our house, and we have had a few sheriff people show up saying, "Are you okay?" Right? Anyway, I just wanted to say that the police report, if you read it, it tells you something about our community. And right now it says good things. Thank you.
Thank you. I will echo your compliment. Luis has worked really hard, and I know it's a lot of statistical data for him to bring forward each month, gathering it from the sheriff's department and then categorizing it to meet each facility. And he's reformatted it many times, and I know personally I appreciate it as well. I like to see the things that affect our parks and how they're being used. So,
Absolutely, it's my
Thank
pleasure.
okay. And speaking of police reports, Luis, can you present the police report, please?
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and begin. This is a police report for the month of March. And we'll go ahead and begin with the skate park. With the skate park, there were 3 calls of service, 3 extra patrols. So for the month of March, we'll go ahead and begin with the skate park. Skate park, there were 3 calls for service, 3 extra patrols. There's no arrests or citations. And there was 5 calls unrelated to recreation. Over at Libby Park, there were 6 calls for service, 6 extra patrols, 0 arrests or citations, 3 calls unrelated to recreation.
What number?
For Zero Zodi Park,
7A or?
there's 11 calls for service, 2 extra patrols, 1 arrest, and then 3 calls unrelated to recreation. For City Hall campus, Cliff Vista Park, Rotary Park, and Daily Ranch Park, we were unable to locate any calls for service in the month of March for these locations. In addition to that, we also have a chart showing the calls for service for the last 3 months. And with that, that concludes the police report for the month of March.
Thank you. Any questions?
So was the Boyd Center alarm just a malfunction?
Yes, just a malfunction.
Police report.
Thank you. And,
Chair, we received a public comment for the police report.
okay, yes, please. And I have this one if you want to chart it. Trade check. Okay. 7A. Scranton, Paul Scranton. And Mr. Miley, may I ask you to return for a comment on the police report?
Yes, Bill Miley. Recently, I think it was about a month ago, the city manager and our chief of police had an hour or 2 Zoom meeting for anybody who wanted to talk about police issues. And I got out of that this city is really low crime and quite safe. Now, I wanted to ask whether or not the presentation that Luis just made ever gets to the city council and gets to be public, in a public presentation, because it says a lot about how our sheriff and the city council is running, because the issue now is how much money we're going to spend on sheriff services, $3 million, or we're going to try to cut it down. But we have a safe city, and also we have to look at the issue of tourists come here, maybe because partly it's safe. So I would suggest that Park and Recreation Commission consider working with the city manager and making a public presentation to the city council maybe 4 times a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and do we have a Publix Works report?
We do. So we'll go ahead and begin with Libby Park. So Libby Park recent events held at the park, March 24th and 25th, was the music festival hosted their Bravo program that was geared towards elementary aged children. The upper and lower tennis courts were recently resurfaced. The tennis bleachers are currently being repaired for the Ojai tennis tournament. And then new mulch was also spread throughout the park. In addition to that, a water leak in the irrigation system was repaired. Over at the skate park, there was graffiti removed from the restroom. And over at Rotary Park, several water leaks in the irrigation system were repaired, as well as weed abatement was performed in the park. And that concludes the Public Works report for the month of March.
I have a question on that. We resurfaced which courts?
The tennis courts.
Which numbers?
The upper and lower, so
Oh,
all,
all
yeah,
of
all,
them.
yeah, all 8
Okay.
courts.
And do you have a cost on that?
I don't at this particular moment, but I'm happy to go ahead and send that
just
to the
curious.
commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to the consent items. Agenda item number 6. We have the minutes from our March 3rd, I think that should be 2022.
Yes, 2022.
2022 meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes that Luis emailed earlier in the week?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Any discussions, edits, changes? No? May I get a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve as posted.
Thank you, Commissioner Firestone. And can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Luis, call the
Okay,
roll.
so with that, Chair Taylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Firestone.
Yes.
Perfect, motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. And moving on to presentations, actions, and discussion items, we have 7A, Pickleball Facilities. We have a recommendation that the commission receive an update from the Pickleball Ad Hoc Committee. Before we move to that discussion, I have several comments from the public speaking cards here. And Mr. Miley, for item 7A.
Bill, Madam Chair, is it possible to hear the survey first before the public speaks?
Certainly.
Or can we speak also after that? I would prefer to be able to hear the survey and then modify my comments if needed.
Certainly, we can defer. And I'm not sure that we have results of a survey. I think tonight, the intention of the item was to get an update for the commission on the work of the ad hoc, since we had put it on an accelerated schedule,
Okay.
just so that the rest of the commission knows where we're at and what they've been doing over the last month.
Okay.
Any progress made or resources that they need, things like that. So certainly, though, if you want to wait for
I
the...
prepared my comments as if the survey report was going to be made tonight.
Not to my knowledge, but I haven't heard the agenda
Oh,
item
no.
yet.
That's what I assumed, but I assumed wrong. That's all right.
Okay. I'll reserve your speaking card. That's not a
okay,
problem.
thank you.
We certainly want to hear what everybody has to say. And I have 2 other speaker cards. Is there a preference? Would you like to speak now or hear the commission's ad hoc's update? Okay. And you're speaking for Jane on,
Jamie Roth?
okay, on the Paul Scranton card?
Yes. I
Scranton?
live next, not directly. Neighbors, I'm at 406 South Signal Street. And we all know the details of the impact of pickleball. Did you receive the 7 letters we forwarded, Luis? Did you share our whole Signal Street? About 85% people wrote a letter indicating their opposition. Did you happen?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I think I may have missed that email, but I'm happy to go ahead and share that right now as they're actually.
Oh, 'cause
that was
there's-
sent via email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's like about
7 letters.
seven letters.
And
letters?
Alec,
Okay.
I have another one arriving.
Okay. Let me go ahead and take a quick
but-
look. Please proceed.
Well, this is Paul's time,
Okay.
so really, everybody knows the details.
Yeah. I don't know whether you're kind of aware of the sort of topography around the back of Signal Street as it descends down into Libby Park, but there's a kind of, we live right on the edge, just like about 350 feet away from Libby Bowl, and it strangely amplifies the sound. You can hear people, you can hear conversations as people walk down the bicycle path. I actually heard somebody playing pickleball on those lower courts a couple of weeks ago, which was one of the things that kind of really inspired me to write to you. It was a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour, 6-hour, 7-hour, 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour, 11-hour, 12-hour, 13-hour, 14-hour, 15-hour, 16-hour, 17-hour, 18-hour, 19-hour, 20-hour, 21-hour, 22-hour, 23-hour, 24-hour, 25-hour, 26-hour, 27-hour, 28-hour, 29-hour, 30-hour, 31-hour, 32-hour, 33-hour, 34-hour, 35-hour, 36-hour, 37-hour, 38-hour, 39-hour, 40-hour, 41-hour, 42-hour, 43-hour, 44-hour, 45-hour, 46-hour, 47-hour, 48-hour, 49-hour, 50-hour, 51-hour, 52-hour, 53-hour, 54-hour, 55-hour, 56-hour, 57-hour, 58-hour, 59-hour, I'm not fundamental. I've got nothing against pickleball. In fact, you know, we were some of the early adopters when we started playing pickleball until I hurt my ankle. So it's nothing to do with that. It's really to do with the kind of noise nuisance that it's going to create for us. And being where we are, we're kind of sandwiched in between. We would be sandwiched in between two pickleball courts, so we would be hearing it really from both sides.
Okay.
And we're in full support of an alternative, and I have many friends that play pickleball and love it, and fully support finding a mutually agreeable location.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil people's
I-
fun.
And I don't want to have to sell my house.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, ma'am, I missed your name for the record.
Janie Roth, R-O-T-H.
Thank you, Ms. Roth.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. Okay.
Would you like me
And
to comment now?
Absolutely, it's certainly. Peter Prick?
Yeah. My name is Peter Pick, and I also live on South Signal Street. I'm one of the neighbors who would be impacted by noise if pickleball were to move to Libby Park. And I wanted to make 3 points to the ad hoc committee to take into consideration. My first point is to please engage the neighbors with any plan that you come up with. Neighbors are important stakeholders in this. They were not properly engaged when the current pickleball facility was installed. And neighbors have been involved in this issue basically through a complaint process, which is really unfortunate because that's not constructive. We need to find a more constructive way to engage the neighbors. One of the things that's important to understand, I think, is that neighbors will always be outnumbered by pickleball players because, you know, there's only 8 or 10, a handful of neighbors, but there's hundreds of pickleball players. So this is not an issue of, you know, the majority. This is an issue of the whole community being a part of the solution. My second point is about the actual noise itself, and I think Bill will speak to this. It's a very kind of sensitive issue with the neighbors, and we're not just trying to be difficult. You know, we live in a neighborhood where noise is a daily part of our lives, and pickleball is an outlier, even in that spectrum, right? People are really concerned about it. The number of times this issue has come up in the state and throughout the country should also be a clue. You know, people are not just making this up. I understand there's been sort of an informal sound study, and the results basically say that the issue is manageable. And I think that data once again misses the issue that the neighbors are bringing forward, which is, you know, can't just measure this in decibels. And then my final point is, if we're going to do this, we should think about the long term here. You know, 2 years ago, when we installed the pickleball court that we currently have, you know, that was enough capacity. And now, you know, by all indications, we're out of capacity. So 2 years from now, we're going to have the same conversation again. So if we just come up with a stopgap measure, I think that's going to hurt us in the long term. We will also be wasting valuable resources if the community conflict continues. We're going to have rules enforcement issues, complaints issues, sound abatement issues. So those costs could be put to better use if we find a solution that works for everyone and not just for 1 or 2 of the constituents. So please take this opportunity to not just come up with more capacity, but to also correct the problem that we have. If we can come up with a facility in Ojai that works in the long term and that works for everyone, then Ojai can be a destination for pickleball enthusiasts. And to my common sense way of thinking, the village center is not that location. Thank you very much for listening to my concerns and comments.
Thank you. 7. And Ms. Quimby, is that 7A also?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. I represent the neighbors and property owners of the current pickleball courts who have been suffering through more than 2 years of noise intrusion into their homes because the current courts are sited just over 100 feet from their homes. My family owns the 2-story apartments that are closest right across the street here to the courts. The tenants have been driven mad by the popping noises of the pickleballs hitting the wooden mallets. And even with their double pane windows closed, the sounds come into their house. I mean, it's not just sitting in their yards, it's inside the home, in their bedrooms. So they can't sleep when they want to sleep, they can't enjoy the inside of their homes. So I and the other committee members of the neighbors are fully supportive of pickleball. It's a fantastic sport, especially for older adults. And we raise these noise issues with you because we can't continue to have the courts here. They weren't cited properly, and the complaints will continue. We also don't support moving them to Lower Libby now. We did initially, but we realize that just a new set of neighbors will be tortured by the sound, and we don't want that either. So we believe the best permanent solution is at Soul Park, where players can play without disturbing any nearby residents, and can hold tournaments and expand the courts to accommodate the ever-growing number of players. So we beg of you, for our sanity, for our ability to sit outside again, to sleep the hours we wish to sleep, to enjoy our homes, that you recommend to the City Council that the current courts at Ventura Street be shut down in no longer than 6 months, and that the Soul Park, and that temporary courts are put at the Boyd Center indoors, especially in the summer months when it's 100 degrees out like it was today. Having indoor accommodations for pickleball is really critical for this community, and establish temporary courts at Soul Park while we work out all of the issues that are around Soul Park, access and so forth. And let's have a community plan where we can establish permanent courts and nets and lights and have tournaments out there, and it's going to be a beautiful place for pickleball in the Ojai Valley. Everyone, we can solve this problem as a community, and everybody can win here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, and any other public comments online? Hands raised? Luis? No? Okay.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, if I could get, is Commissioner Firestone or Wilson, do you have a presentation? Okay.
Just a brief update. I'd like to just start off though reminding what the charge is to the ad hoc committee. This is sort of from both the City Council and the Parks and Recreation Commissioners, because the wording was slightly different, but basically the ad hoc committee is intended to work with staff on an accelerated basis to gather information and return to the City Council the information regarding costs, deed restrictions, and other factors, including usage of pickleball time and court play, regarding situation of pickleball courts within the city of Ojai or elsewhere in the Ojai Valley. So we've essentially been charged with investigating the situation and providing information to the Parks and Recreation Commission in order to formulate some recommendations for the City Council along with the information that we gather. So we have been hard at work. We've met in person twice, or I guess one Zoom meeting and one in-person meeting. We've reviewed numerous reports on all kinds of pickleball and community issues. We've exchanged lengthy email conversations focused on documenting the current circumstances of pickleball here in the city and in the valley, and as well as trying to understand how other communities have been addressing similar situations, specifically the growth of pickleball and the need for sound mitigation and sensitivity to pickleball facilities sited particularly near residents. So in summary, we've four main processes we've been focused on. First, we did work with city staff to create and implement the first ever survey of interest and needs specific to pickleball. The last Parks and Recreation survey was about 5 or 6 years ago, and it did not include pickleball. Pickleball was not one of the sports that people could weigh in on. So the online survey just ended yesterday. That was the last day for people to submit their comments and information. So we'll start reviewing that data now, but we haven't actually been able to see any of that yet. We've reviewed the city sound tests as well as testing standards for pickleball. And we're also in the process of consulting with outside sound engineers to identify the best and most effective sound mitigation strategies. And when I say strategies, this is all the way from, site selection and geography, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're consulting with folks on that. We're in the process of creating a criteria to be used to evaluate any proposed or possible sites for pickleball place based on zoning, physical requirements, sound mitigation options, and public accessibilities. Plus, we'll fold in the needs identified through the survey as well, because we did ask questions about how far people would travel and how they like to travel. Do they want to be close to a bike path, et cetera? And we've determined that what we want to provide will be costs and comparative analysis for all the recommendations, and the recommendations potentially could be a little bit broader than simply sites, but we'll offer those recommendations, and our timeline or our implementation timeframes that we're working with is that we will have recommendations for actions within 6 months of city council approval. So those are short-term recommendations, and city council approval is the linchpin to start the clock. 12 to 24 months after approval, midterm options, and 2+ years after approval, so long-term options. We are making every effort to have a report and a set of recommendations for the Parks and Recreation Commission by the May meeting. But we're trying to be as thorough as we can and take into consideration the comments and the issues that have been brought forth. So I think that's all I have, unless Commissioner Firestone wants to add anything.
So thank you, Commissioner Wilson. I think that's a great summary of what we've been up to, and thank you to Louise for working with us. We did receive a couple of comments about the survey and some critique of the contents of it. And so I just wanted to kind of clarify what the intent of that survey was, which is really thinking about this long-term that Commissioner Wilson mentioned, kind of thinking if there are long-term solutions to pickleball, if we're kind of thinking of different places where pickleball could go, how do we weigh, different benefits of different locations? And that's what the survey was about. Yes, we know people like to play pickleball. So it wasn't really a survey to see, do people like pickleball? Do they not? No, we know that. It was more to understand of the people who play pickleball, what are their priorities as far as siting, and that can help us as we're kind of looking at potential issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and we have 7B, skate park shade structure.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Riley. Absolutely, yes. Sorry about that. I forgot about your
Good evening, Bill
request.
Miley. I sent this to your commission several days ago. Look, I am looking forward to the tallies from the first pickleball survey just completed. I completed the survey as if I was interested in playing. I told you that in the comment area at the bottom. I have only sampled play several times with my family. I have a retired nephew, physician, who is very active in pickleball. He lives in Stockton and he travels all over California. So I have that point of view as part of my thinking. I responded with my interest would be more courts, lights, restrooms, drinking water supplies, seats for viewing, adequate parking, and shade, covering for the hot summer and fall. I expect the survey will show a strong interest response from several hundred people who are regulars and who are just getting involved. Anticipating a positive response, your commission should find that very encouraging for new recreation sports and expansion of recreation facilities here in the Valley. And I'll talk a little bit more, but just at the end. The survey will show, if I anticipated right, that the current location is inadequate for the amount of interest reported in the survey. And corresponding with Louise, the recreation supervisor, I commented that the community problem, which generated all the community pickleball energy, was not mentioned in the survey, the sound noise intrusion in nearby residents. He said that a second survey likely would be developed to address that. Because of that, I crafted a set of questions which could be answered in a second survey, and they're below, and I won't go over those because you already know them. But I would like to summarize it by saying that the siting of pickleball courts is so important, mentioned by two of the commissioners. But I'd like to ask you to take a look into the near future for pickleball in the Ojai Valley. I vision this. Because the City Council has informally discussed trying to assume management of Sol Park from our county government, and whether that's possible, I don't know. But what I envision is this: multiple courts at Sol Park with lights, parking, restrooms, shade, drinking water. And you may know that the tourist economy in Ojai dries up on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You can go anywhere, and there's parking, and there's not cars, and restaurants aren't even open, actually. Please vision this: a multi-court pickleball facility siting in an environment which allows full play with no sound noise intrusion, which I understand could be Sol Park. It would allow tournaments to be held. It would benefit the entire city all week long and all year long. And I can't see any losers here at all. It would be win-win. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miley. Okay.
And Chair, just a point of clarity in the communication with Mr. Miley, it was noted that the survey was an aspect of the committee's research and that additional research would be conducted.
Of course. Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
And
Okay.
congratulations, Mr. Miley, on maybe a record number of public comments in one of our commission meetings.
It's really great to see all of you. I know everyone has their different interests that they're here to represent, but I've been sitting on the commission for many years, and it's really nice to see the faces and hear back, from the public on how they're feeling and their wants and their needs, and we really appreciate it. And so, thanks for attending.
Yeah, I echo that.
It's nice. Okay, and yes, any other comments, public speakers for 7A before I move on? No?
Via Zoom.
Okay. Okay, and we have a shade, 7B, a shade structure for the skate park report, staff report?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, or you can stay. Thank you for coming again.
Yes.
Thank you, it was nice meeting you. Mhm. Oh, someone left their papers there.
That's Mr. Miley. I think.
Oh, is
I
that
think he
Miley?
should
He's
be-
coming back.
be
Okay.
coming back.
All right, sorry
Okay.
about that.
That's
Okay, so
okay.
our skate park shade structure
Yeah, absolutely.
update.
So we have a summary, and then also have a PowerPoint slide that we'll go ahead and show, and I'll invite Commissioner Firestone to go ahead and to go over that. But in summary of the report, you know, the commission received a comment from a community member requesting a shade structure be installed at the skate park for park goers. In efforts to accommodate that request, the commission requests that staff look into the viability of installing that structure. It's at the January 6th meeting, staff provided an update to the commission on the feasibility of installing the structure, and during that discussion, Commissioner Firestone expressed interest in working with staff to conduct a thorough research to maximize the shade for park goers. On Tuesday, March 22nd, Commissioner Firestone and I met at the skate park and discussed placement and orientation of the structure. During that discussion, it was determined that the initial location would be optimal with the addition of a privacy screen. Privacy screen would be that similar to what we'd find like a tennis court, which on the first two panels of the skate park there, as seen in attachment A. With the addition, staff reached out to Superior Awning to obtain an updated quote. During that time, staff was advised that due to shortage of materials caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the solar mesh materials prices had risen significantly. The updated cost for the shade sales was noted to be $7,246, and the cost of the sales and installation was noted to be $9,646. Now that quote does include installation by the city's Public Works Department to save on labor costs. The full cost with the privacy screens on the first two panels would be $9,996. Now, staff has identified $10,000 in the budget, which could be utilized for the structure. Should the commission wish to go ahead and move forward with what's been presented, and we'll go over the PowerPoint presentation here just in a minute. Staff would seek permission from the school district to install the structure, and of course, if approved, we'd go ahead and reach back out to Superior Awning to proceed with that installation there. And Commissioner Firestone, at this point, what I'd like to go ahead and do is I'd like to go ahead and go over the PowerPoint presentation and just kind of go over the shadows and throughout the courses of the day.
Great.
Go ahead and bring that up. Okay. And
Did I give an introduction to
yeah.
what we did here?
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, Luis and I, went out to the park and looked at the area, and really the corners of the triangle that were initially proposed, where the posts would be, which is a little hard to tell if you don't know what you're looking at in this picture, but that northwest corner of the skate park, there we go. That's really the only good place for the posts. If we want to put shade kind of around that area, that's the area that makes sense for the posts and thus the corners of the shade structure to go. So that's a constraint. Another constraint is that we want the shade structure to be high enough that it's not easy to kind of interfere with people reaching up or perhaps swinging a skateboard up, and that's how we picked the 12-foot height. And so that was another constraint. We thought about what if we just lowered two of the corners, because one thing we noticed was that the shade's going to move around throughout the course of the days and the year, and really we want it in one place, and the higher up it is, the more it's going to move around. So we did think about lowering two of the corners to 10 feet. It doesn't make a big difference, but that's actually what these slides show, is if the north corner and the two western corners were raised up. So that's, if we're looking at the three corners in this picture, it's the two to the left and the middle one. If that shade was lower down there, would that help? Anyway, with that, I think we can go and look at these projections.
Okay, let switch over here.
And so what I did while Luis is setting this up is I used some online tools to get the angle and orientation of the sun at various times of the day throughout the year. And then I computed, how long of a shadow that would create and at what angle relative to north or south that would be. So I looked at different times of the year, 4 different times of the year, the winter solstice, the end of December, and then middle of March and middle of June, which is the summer solstice, and then middle of September. And I just kind of, to show where the shade would actually lie on the ground across the day, I show these 3 triangles, so different times of the day. So you can see in the winter, the shade is pretty close to where we would want it, which is that bench area. I don't know if, Luis, you can move your mouse to kind of highlight the bench area. There we go. So we see kind of, middle of the day, 1 o'clock, and probably a little bit to the sides of that. The shade is right over the benches. It's not too hot in December, so not too big of a concern if the shade isn't on there. And if we go on to March.
Okay. Yep. Apologies, 1 moment.
Sorry, next slide.
Yeah, sorry, 1 moment, please.
Yeah, while Luis is doing that, keep in mind in the winter, the sun is relatively low in the sky, even at noon. So it's kind of, the sun is to the south at noon, and it's pushing the shadow a little bit north. But then what we see as we go into March, now the sun angles are getting a little higher, and sun comes up kind of further to the east and sets further to the west. So we see these shadows start to spread kind of more. So we see in the morning kind of the shadows are kind of far off the side. And then look in the afternoon, like 4 p.m., we see that the shadow is nowhere near the seating area. And in fact, it's kind of getting into the skating area. And then if we go on to June, so this is the time we're really interested in, right? In the summer, it's really hot. Now we've got like the long days, and the sun is coming up like way in the northeast and setting in the northwest. So it's kind of swinging all the way around, basically. And it throws the shadows like everywhere. And so we see, again, that in the afternoon hours, we're not really getting much shade, if any, on the benches. And that's kind of a critical time, is kind of summer afternoon. But we also see that it is covering the benches earlier in the day. So kind of up until noon or 1 o'clock, we're getting some decent shade in the area that we want it. And then if we look at September, it looks pretty much like March as far as where the shadows are. Again, good coverage earlier in the day and noon and a little bit afternoon, but then in the afternoon, later in the day, not so good coverage in the area we want it. And like I said, we're kind of stuck with like where we could put those posts for a shade sail. We can't kind of, scoot the posts over 30 feet to the west. It's just not practical. It doesn't really fit in with everything else. We can't drop the shade down real low, because then it's going to interfere with people, or people would be able to access it and mess with it. So it was kind of a question of like, well, how can we kind of supplement the shade structure, which does cover the seating area at certain times of the day, with something to provide coverage later in the day, particularly in the summer months. And conveniently, the back of those benches is in the way of the sun at those hours. So that's where this privacy screen comes in that Luis mentioned. So that would kind of cover some of those afternoon hours that the shade structure wouldn't be providing shade in the seated area. So I'll together, it seems like with that, the two combined would provide shade for a lot of the hours of concern. Right now, there's nothing there except that I think it's a redwood tree, which hopefully in a few years will provide a lot of shade. So I think this is a good solution. It fits within the budget, and I appreciate that Luis has, gotten a little creative as costs have gone up to kind of keep this project within the $10,000 constraint. So I think it's pretty good. As a side note, I'll say it's nice being out there with Luis. He's always engaging with the skaters and understand how they like the park and what they're interested in. So kudos to Luis for that.
Well, I gotta echo that back and say thank you for coming out. Being out there and just speaking with the skaters, I think they appreciate, just even having, city representation coming out and noting that, there's potential works for a structure out there. So thank you for your work as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Firestone. That was very thorough and impressive. I appreciate the effort. And I will say, I did receive a comment from several of the youth skaters. They evidently must have been talking amongst themselves. We're talking some 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, all anticipating a recommendation tonight on the staff report. And so it was impressive that they actually retained that information and passed it on to their parents, who then passed it on to me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? I'm just clarifying that I understand this, because this sounds like a really good solution. So essentially, the shade sails will stay at the height as originally proposed, and then this the privacy cover will go in the back, and that will actually help block some of the sun as it gets toward the later part of the day, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was following. I mean, your presentation was good, but, I'm trying to absorb it. But, so essentially, short of trying to cover the whole skate park, this will provide pretty much the shade that was originally desired. Is that a correct understanding?
I think in that one area that is kind of the area where they sort of loiter in between their, or that's probably the wrong word, before they are standing, between, recreating. Yeah. They congregate. That's the word I'm looking for. They congregate in that area.
Yeah.
And even if it's not, I have observed them myself, and even if they're not active in their play, and not sitting on the bench in the afternoon, I see a lot of them standing on, I think they call it the deck, right? Where that 4 o'clock shade, based on that one picture, they would actually benefit from that. I mean, they'd be standing, but they'd be under shade, it looked like.
Right. That actually is a little bit of a concern, and Commissioner had brought this up at an earlier meeting, was that, we don't want to encourage people who aren't actively skating to be standing right in the skate area, because people are flying up on skateboards, or skateboards are flying up without people on them. And so, that corner where the bench is ideal if people are not going to be actively skating because it's out of the way. This does put shade in an area where we really wouldn't want people just kind of hanging out at certain times of the day. So that is a bit of a concern, but with the way the sun moves around so much, I don't see a way around that.
Okay.
So, and then one of the other things that I wanted to go ahead and know is the actual colors of the sails. So in the initial report, staff had recommended a forest green, and I think it was Commissioner Ittner who made a very good point, possibly going with a lighter color for fade resistance. So in attachment 7B, we did provide a panel of all the different colors, and then with me today, I also have the panels here that I can go ahead and pass around. And again, this is attachment B for the rest of the commissioners that you can go ahead and reference to, but I'll go ahead and pass this around here.
Is the draft rendering of the skate park structure, is that the cactus? Is that, or is it more of the smoke gray?
That's more of the smoke gray. Again, that's simply just for illustration purposes, but
Okay.
of course the commission can definitely proceed with a different color if it wishes.
I would agree with Commissioner Entner's concern for fade, and I think also a natural look is also very park-like. I'm personally partial to the sand in there. I don't know, it's gonna be hard for them to tell. Commissioner Firestone, you have a pretty intimate knowledge of this project. Did you get a chance to look at those sample colors when you were visiting?
I have seen the sample colors. I don't have an opinion. I think the lighter colors make sense
Yeah.
on that.
Looking at this, it's better than the flat paper. So
Yeah.
the
Definitely.
The
I
sand
think the
looks,
sand is really natural.
that looks pretty natural.
Yeah, and one of the things I would like to go ahead and note is we actually have both the sand and the forest green installed at Ojai Park between the gymnasium and the game room. So both of those shade colors are there. Yeah.
And do you have a preference?
Both are aesthetically pleasing. You know, I think that Commissioner Ittner made a very valid point. You know, the lighter color probably be a little bit more fade resistant. So, you know, that's one of the recommendations.
Okay. And I think tonight staff is looking for a recommendation from the commission. Is that
Yeah,
right?
correct. So, so if the commission wishes to go ahead and proceed, then again, staff would go ahead and reach out to the school district to seek permission to have this installed. And then again, if that's approved, then reach out to Superior Awning to proceed with the project.
Do I have a motion? I'm happy to make the motion. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know we had a speaker. I'm sorry. Mr. Miley, please join us for 7B.
Thank you, Bill Miley. It seems to me that the shade idea is a great idea. I've never spoken about this before, but I've been following what you've been doing, and it goes way back before they even built it years ago. The efforts to get it built, the efforts to get lights, and now shade. That's a great idea. Has there ever been any look at the issue of how air flows over that area during times of the day and times of the season? Is there anything that blocks the airflow? That maybe comes down the channel and then the next and goes into the Ojai Avenue. So it would be interesting to know that if the buildings on the west side block some of the air, or maybe they don't, but I would suggest that, I don't know how many trees are there, but it would seem to me that by surrounding at least the north side with trees would help in natural evaporative cooling. So if is there one tree there? I don't know.
One immature tree. I
I
think
think
there's one.
maybe having more trees. Okay. And then the issue is studying airflow. I think doing this is really good, and I certainly support what you're doing, and I like it. Thank you.
Thank you. If I recall correctly, this issue was brought by a youth who used the skate park many years ago. I want to say possibly even in 2019, pre-pandemic, is what serves me, but I might be off on my years. And it is a relatively small area, and I think that the commission, especially Commissioner Firestone, has really done its due diligence in researching this to meet the needs of the actual users and those parents that are there using the observation area. And I think it is going to be a real asset to the area. I would motion without any further discussion that the commission recommend to staff to pursue the approval from the school district, and if so granted, then to seek approval of not to exceed the $10,000 that we've budgeted with Superior Awning.
Okay. And then for clarity, is there a preference on the color for the shade zone?
I elect that my motion is for sand. And I'll wait for a second.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, can we have a roll call? Any
Absolutely.
discussion? I'm sorry, any discussion on that? Okay, can you call the roll?
Absolutely. So Commissioner Walker,
Yes.
Commissioner Firestone,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Chair Taylor,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. And thank you again for everybody who's worked on that. Okay, and we have 7C, recreational programming enrollment data recommendation is that the commission receive an update from the Recreation Department's enrollment data online system and provide feedback. Is that Weston, or are you?
That is Weston today.
That's
Welcome,
me. Hello,
Weston.
Commission.
Okay.
Yes, I have the report on the Recreation Department programming enrollment data. So the City of Ojai, the Recreation Department, has contracted with ActiveNet. We call it Active Network Incorporated, which we call ActiveNet, for our services to provide, to register participants, process payments, and track enrollment. ActiveNet is an online system which allows community members to conveniently access our department's programs, activities, and classes, and provides much more tools specifically helpful to our recreational programming. During the January 6th, 2022 Parks and Recreation meeting, we provided an update, staff provided an update on the department's enrollment data and this registration system. Upon receiving this update, the commission recommended that the drop-in numbers be excluded from our enrollment totals as to not offset the data, and that when providing our enrollment data, there be more areas of specification. Additionally, the commission requested that the staff further research the ActiveNet's capabilities to confirm whether the system could differentiate our repeated participants from any specific program versus total enrollments to find an actual number of participants being served. Moving forward, we did contact ActiveNet. So while the system is user-friendly and has many good capabilities, it does not have the ability to differentiate repeated participants from any specific program versus enrollment totals. To verify this, we did have a meeting with ActiveNet via phone, and they confirmed that the system does not have that ability to produce those reports to directly identify this. Also, on Tuesday, February 1st, we met with Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Wilson, thank you for coming by the department. And during this time, we demonstrated the ActiveNet's vast capabilities, and also that the differentiating of repeated participants would be time and labor intensive. So although this may be the case, the system does have the ability to produce other reports, which we think the commission will find very helpful, as you did request a more diversified breakdown of data. These include enrollment totals, drop-in activities, resident versus non-resident enrollment data, specific program enrollment area totals, for example, gymnastics or tennis, and hours of recreational programming used by community members. Below in the report, I did provide a few graphs to kind of show off our more diversified breakdown of data when we are showing off to anyone else, as seen in attachment A. And in conclusion, the registration system and staff are able to provide ample data in a variety of ways to prove our utilization of our department services. That's the end of our report there, and I would love to hear from it.
Thank you, Weston. I thought that the graphic in attachment A, page 1, was really interesting to see that there's almost a 50-50 resident versus non-resident. So that was really important for me to know. And then also the same with the gymnastic program below, 65% coming outside of the city. That's interesting data for the council, I think, to be aware of. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair.
I have, Ryan, I have a couple of questions. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate all the effort here, and you guys were really great in explaining things to me. And I like very much the direction this is going in. Again, graphics are always great. I think this is very useful information. The activities totals report, which I guess comes directly out of the ActiveNet, I just was a little a little bit confused about the metrics there in terms of minimum, maximum hours and days. So if you wouldn't mind just clarifying that for me. And then the other question I had, and I think we have the data to do this, is I think when we discussed before, I was asking if we couldn't sort of figure out to what extent we are utilizing the capacity of programming that we have. So that, my understanding of that would be the hours of programming that are available divided by the enrollment, which would, tell us to, are we at 90% capacity, or are we at, 110% capacity, and so forth. And it seems like you have the data to do that, but I'm not seeing that specifically called out. But if you could maybe just clarify on this activities totals report, and then if we could get that capacity ratio or utilization,
Yes.
I'm sorry, utilization rate.
Yes, to answer your first question, upon the report that you see in our attachment A, that is the activity totals. That's for an entire year of programming, and that's the last page.
Right.
The main purpose of those metrics was to highlight that we can exclude drop-ins. So that, first of all, that was the main purpose, which was requested by the commission to look at. And then from there, it can be very specific. It is a very extensive report, and we can customize it. So that's why I did choose to just highlight drop-ins. And but the metrics you see show the hours there, and just more specific things we would have to really split hairs about, but which we do all day at the department.
And the minimum is, when that says, is that the 4 and the 10, like on line 1, that means at any given time there was 4 participants, or what does that 4 represent?
Yes, that would be the minimum that we allow for
Bless you.
the program to run.
Okay.
And then as far as providing that utilization rate that you spoke of, I don't have that information now, but we can look into that and provide that.
And under hours, does that means 6 hours or 6? Explain that next one where it says minimum, maximum, and then it says hours. What does the 6 represent?
That would be for the entirety of that class. So that class was a 6-week class at 1 hour per week.
got
So
it.
that would be
Okay.
that 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we did look at the totals of that, I appreciate that you gave us this for a different reason, but if we're still looking at those metrics, and if we look down at the total hours, which was 15,837 hours, that's how much programming was offered, correct? Or is that how many hours were actually utilized with enrolled participants?
I think
That would be hours offered.
Hours
So it would
offered.
be,
Okay.
it would be less than that if we got into specifics of what was actually participated in.
Yeah, right, but we actually can, so that's the first number we need. So, okay, good, we're making progress, okay.
And then out of that, you're saying it would be a matter of taking, like, let's just stick with the first line. We had 3 residents, and I think that says 5 for a total of 8 out of the 10 maximum that were available. We had 8 participants. Now, I don't know that they pay for 8. I don't know that we care if they show up for 6, right? We don't track that. We just know that they're signed up for the entire class, and that would count as a 6-hour participant, correct?
That's true.
Okay.
So just using those numbers, we had an 80% 80% utilization of the available
For that time, yeah.
for youth tennis, right? Are we understanding that correctly?
For that one specific class, yes, that would be
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions for Weston?
Comment. I think this is great progress. This is something that I had brought up, I guess, last year. And I appreciate that you all are looking into this. It seems like we're getting to the point where we can get the data in a rich enough format that, we can answer questions that we have. And I think maybe now that we know we can do this, it's time to think like, well, what are the questions we want to ask, right? It's interesting to know kind of resident versus non-resident.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting to know, like, from year to year how participation changes. Beyond that, I think it's up to us to kind of think more about, like, well, what else would be useful to know, and maybe that's different for the commission than internally in the department. I don't know, but it's a challenge for all of us to think about what questions we could answer with this data.
I do have one question, just kind of was doing some quick calculations as I was moving down. Weston, can you look at the line item that says youth tennis, which is from January 5th, 2021 to, it has February 11th, 2021. I think it's in the intermediate. Minimum for maximum is 8. And then total hours 12, days 12. And then it has that we had 10 participants. So we were over capacity. Is that normal? Or am I reading that right?
That would be at capacity. That would be the class was full at 10.
Okay. But on the first line, it says minimum 4, maximum 10, total 8.
Oh, I see. Pardon me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would
For
that be
that
at
specific
120%?
For that specific instance, I'm not sure, but this is run by a contract instructor who does have the ability to tailor to the needs
Yeah.
that they can
Yeah,
make
so
those
if
adjustments.
if they had 2 more participants, they may just evaluate maybe their skill level or something and decide if they can have them participate.
Right. Yes.
Because
Especially with that intermediate level. Good
think-
call. Good question.
I think Commissioner Wilson makes an excellent point. I like using the percentages. That's really, and even if you are able to do this activity report and perhaps do a separate, Excel calculation of some sort, if it doesn't do it automatically for you, that is really interesting to see that contractor youth tennis, just as that one just jumped out at me, is at 120% utilization. The 2 above it are at 100% utilization. So it helps, and I think staff will find it helpful as you gain this empirical data over the years to look back and say where are our needs and where can we increase our activities for that are desired. So I think that's a really good point.
And moving away from the COVID era, it'll be good to track these things year over year for trends. Because if it should be able to see if things are trending up or trending down, and more needs to be added, more contract instructors or less or whatever. But it should be, it should be useful to look at capacity as well as and the same thing with looking at like the chart you have with the different programming, how many programming hours. Again, looking at that year over year, and also. Getting more finer data on the specific program areas, which I know you're using this as an example, and I think it's really fantastic to show gymnastics accounts for 35% of the participants. I mean, that's really important information. And then the rest of the programming, and then I'd eventually like to see what's the rest of the programming like, and but. This is good stuff. I think we can start to really understand the community demands as well as the staffing needs and programming needs, and make decisions based on this data going forward, at least anticipating potential decisions. Yeah? So thank you. Very good.
Yes. Thank you, Weston.
Thank you, Commission.
Okay, 7D. Multi-purpose sport courts update, that the commission receive an update on the construction of the Sarasate multi-purpose sports courts.
Okay,
Luis.
Absolutely.
I'm sure the public has long anticipated this.
Yes. So, just kind of in summary of the report, the Sears Odie Master Plan was adopted back in 2017 and is a culmination of many months of discussion between park goers, community members, Parks and Recreation Commission, and staff. A primary wish of the community was outdoor courts to be utilized for basketball and futsal. On May 25th, 2021, City Council approved a resolution authorizing staff to submit a grant application for Proposition 68 funding for the 2 outdoor courts. Grant funding was awarded in the amount of $182,841 on October 21st, 2021. The final item before any grant payments could be received was the recording of the deed restriction for Zero's Odie Park. Staff initiated the recording process, and that process was recently completed in mid-March. Now, the deed restriction does not prohibit any future improvements at the park. However, it does prohibit the city from removing the grant-funded courts for 30 years, and does require the city to comply with other terms of the grant for that period. An example like non-discrimination clause, and that the city not pledge the restricted land for security debt without state approval. During the February Parks and Rec Commission meeting, staff noted that the initial engineering firm who was initially contracted to assist with the project was no longer able to due to their internal staffing issues. And after staff received that update, or got the update, we quickly identified 2 other engineering firms as potential candidates to help with the project. Since that time, staff has determined to proceed with Stantec Consulting Services. Stantec has helped the city in other capacities, such as with the Drown Avenue feasibility study, as well as portions of the ATP project. Stantec is currently reviewing the construction plans to determine whether additional studies are needed, such as geotechnical and draining studies. And in recent conversation with representatives from Stantec, staff did learn that the estimated cost for construction had increased due to the COVID pandemic. It had the initial cost was $328,000, and the cost related by Stantec was $492,000, leaving a $156,000 funding deficit, as you can see in attachment B there in the packet. A total of $335,000 is available to complete the project, and is itemized as follows. The city did receive a generous grant from the Civic Association of $127,500. As previously noted, received a grant from the state in the amount of $182,841, and has $25,000 available, a grant matching from Measure C. Now, staff is seeking additional grant funding, and any additional funding will be used to close the gap for the construction of the project. Recently, the city manager and I met to review the budget and identified funds which could potentially be reallocated to help complete the project. And again, those fundings would be for Measure C. Reallocation of funds would need to be approved by City Council. Now, I do understand that this project has been a priority for the commission, and for this reason, staff has placed an item on the next City Council agenda to recommend that funds be reallocated to help complete the project. Now, if any additional grant funds are received, the city will reduce the amount of funding from Measure C. So there is definitely, progress in getting this completed. And again, just confirming that this project has been a priority for the commission.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions?
I have a question about the reallocation, possible reallocation of, you said Measure C
For
funds?
Measure C.
So to cover the whole,
No, to cover the
deficit.
The deficit, yeah.
So, can you just explain to me what Measure C is for, and what would this reallocation be affecting? In other words, what other projects would not be not received the allocation.
Sure,
You're saying
so-
a reallocation, that means
so-
it's already been allocated and it'd be moved,
So
right?
and I apologize, reallocation isn't not the proper term.
Oh, okay.
But deferring funds for the project. So to answer your initial question, the TOT is the hotel, the transit occupancy tax.
Okay.
It has come back stronger than initially projected, and so it would be taking those funds to help complete the project.
So this could be unanticipated or excess
Mhm.
of funds, okay.
That is correct.
Okay. Because I was just trying to get at, we're not taking something from.
No,
one
and
project
yeah, and
to
I should have used a
make
better
another
term
pro-
than
okay.
than reallocation, but
okay.
yeah, that's what it is.
And the, go ahead, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, question. Luis, the Stantec, they are just a consulting firm, or they would also do the construction?
No, so the next step from here would be putting out the bids for proposal and then getting the construction company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and is this kind of typical that we get kind of an estimate of cost from someone so that we can kind of get funds secured, and then based on that, we go out to bid?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Well, does this new cost estimate here, does that include, at the last meeting, I think we heard that there was still about 20% of some engineering work that needed to be done. Is that included in this?
That
this
is,
new
yes, yeah, so,
cost?
correct, yeah, so in the attachment there, you'll go ahead and see a full breakdown of it, and it does, and it's a 15% contingency, so that has been noted in the 492 price.
And are the lights that are listed there under alternate one, that's a total of 12?
Mm-hmm.
Are we picking one of those three, or are we getting all three items?
No, so on the, let me go ahead and see here.
The right before the total.
Yep. So it would be, I know for the lights, we're gonna go ahead and look at the solar lights. But so one of the things that the Stantec is also looking to make sure that solar was gonna be the optimal in case any conduit needed to be run. So to answer your question, so this does include both options there, but then it would be determined which would be the best.
So there
to
would be a
proceed with.
reduction, either 14,000 if they went with the double head solar lights, or 8,000 if they go with the
Yes,
single.
potentially.
So a little bit
Yep.
of savings there, because we're not gonna
Potentially,
get
yes.
both. Okay.
Yep.
And maybe a small detail, but I noticed that one of the itemized costs was capping electrical service to the Quonset hut,
Mhm.
and just wanted to call out that, possibly if we're not using solar lights, can that circuit just be used for the lighting? I don't know, but maybe that's an option.
I didn't see that. What page is that on?
It's on the first page, it's number.
I
under
don't have it
number
open, but there's a
Number
cost
29.
for tapping the existing electrical
Oh,
service. to the
irrigation,
Quonset.
okay.
And then the next one is coordinate removal of electrical service. So.
Right.
I thought the
So,
Quonset
I mean,
hut
if there's
was-
already electrical service right there, like,
Okay.
can we use that for lights?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. If we'll make sure that we go ahead and maximize the resources that are already there. If they're already there, we'll go ahead and tap into that resource.
So how confident are the engineers, and how confident are you that this total here represents a pretty realistic final number?
Very, very confident. Of course, they are doing additional studies. If we don't anticipate any additional, we'll focus on drainage. There's not great runoff in that particular area. It is a field, so whenever, we do get rain, it tends to get soaked up by the ground. But to answer your question, very confident.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay. Youth Commissioner Ruff. Do you have an update for us?
Yeah, so I talked to a lot of my friends, and they have younger siblings. And so I kind of gathered two basically key points that seem to be a trend, which was information and relevancy. So information wise, I feel like transition from elementary school to middle school, kids start to become less involved in rec programs. And then from middle school to high school, it kind of completely drops off, I feel like. And so I feel like making sure the information kind of gets into the schools, especially in elementary schools, because that's going to be kind of the biggest amount of participants, I feel like. And then relevancy is kind of moving to get more of the high school and middle school students involved. And we were kind of talking about, I was talking about with my peers, and I feel like a good way might be to get some volunteer things going on. I feel like high school students would love to volunteer with some of the programs, just help out in any way they can. And I think that'd be a good way to kind of continue that participation and that involvement in rec programs. So I think those are kind of the biggest things. And then like smaller issues, or not issues, but things that I noticed were I think kids kind of enjoy the like arts and crafts things that used to happen more at the rec department. I think that was something they enjoyed a lot, which I don't know. I think because of COVID, people kind of everything got mixed up, but I think that was a big thing that, especially my peers, like remember it as being really like fun for them. So yeah.
Thank you. Is that something that you would be able to coordinate with Commissioner Ruff to get some high schoolers there to maybe in a mentor type, I think they call it, you have like volunteer leaders, is that what you call them? Youth leaders, is that right?
Yeah, I could definitely go ahead and work with Commissioner Rupp on this. And I'm happy to go ahead and note we actually have a great art class that's actually starting to pick up a little bit more traction. Art with Robin, she's very good. We're also going to be having, so this summer we're going to do a lot of specialty camps, and we're doing arts and crafts camps. So that offering is definitely going to be available during that time. So, but yeah, I'd be happy to go ahead and work with the Commissioner Ruff to get some high schoolers to help with kind of do a mentorship.
And maybe even like a drop-in art, like a craft. Art is a little, I think the kids that age really, they like to do a craft they can do in an hour, something they can take home with them and, display. I think that's really great. So maybe we can do a drop-in art class with some high school mentors. That would be really great to see that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Ruff, for that
And,
update. Yes, Ryan.
I'll add that it's nice to hear you identifying things that middle schoolers and high school age people would enjoy, right? Because if kids are already busy and they have stuff to do, like, well, we don't need to do anything. But if they're actively looking for particular things that they would like to do, and we can facilitate that, that's great. So
Yeah.
good to hear that.
Thank you. And we actually have a public comment that has come forward. Mr. Miley, on our youth report.
Good evening, Bill Miley. I want to make a record tonight so I can speak in every issue.
It's fine. We love it.
Commissioners may know about Mark Whitman's presentation a couple Sundays ago, and I didn't hear it, but I know about it. And Mark is an architect in town, as you, I'm sure, know. He talked about the value of having an arts center on the property, the Chaparral property, and apparently detailed it out. Now, I wanted to respond to Ms. Rupp, who said information and relevancy. And then she spoke about art activities or craft activities. It seems to me that fits really well into what Mark Whitman is trying to promote. And I like what he's trying to promote. And I think that if it was relevant for youth as they grow older and get out of some of the programs, there would be an opportunity for It's kind of like learning to play tennis. You can do it when you're 12, 14, 20, whatever, and you can still play when you're 73. And so you can do art when you're 73. So I would hope that the commission might invite Mark Whitman to come and speak to the commission about his ideas, following up on Ms. Ruff's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Can I just, I ask a question to the Commissioner. Would high schoolers be interested in some sort of like recreation-oriented internship? Like to learn about running recreational programs?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea, especially coming out of COVID. I think people really want something to like put on their resume, which is like kind of a big thing for high schoolers. But I think that's also a draw, and we can use it to our advantage to get some of that stuff. But I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think a lot of people would be interested in it.
So maybe we could explore both like sort of play leaders or facilitators, mentors, but you know, a formal kind of internship program where it can learn about running, you know, facilitating, especially public recreation. Because, you know, I know that's a field that a lot of younger people are interested in because they like to be outdoors and they like to play sports and stuff, and they look to make a career of it. So it seems to me like juniors and seniors that were looking for things for their resumes might be real interested in, you know, even a short-term kind of internship where they're getting some formal mentoring from you and Wes and the other folks.
Yeah.
Many years ago, when I was in high school, we did have an internship program at Nordhoff. Mrs. Knowles facilitated that. Even through into the 90s, she still had that. And it was through the business class, and I don't know if they have those types of classes at Nordhoff anymore, but there is a framework for past programs that OUSD has offered. And it wasn't just, you know, my experience was in Parks and Recreation, but Mrs. Knowles had people placed all over. She had maybe somebody wanted to be a mechanic, and she would get them set up to do a 2-month internship at a repair shop, and maybe somebody was interested in engineering, and they were able to come after school and work for an hour or two. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity there to involve the youth.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the city, we actually have an internship program. We have an
Oh, I didn't
internship
know.
program. Yeah, it's for college students, but we can go ahead and look in slightly modifying, you know, for high school students. So yeah, we have a pretty neat internship program where we actually had an intern come and assist the city in various capacities. So
I think Parks and Rec is a great place for high school students.
Yep.
And, you know, if the city's already got something in place and you could just modify it, but Parks and Rec just seems like a really ideal spot. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruff. Okay, item number 8, informational items. Luis, recreation report?
absolutely. And for this, I'll go ahead and invite Weston to share the recreation report.
Yes, I have the department update. And I would like to add that volunteers in recreation is always a good thing. It's a foundation for all rec departments. And we always have the kids and the capability of getting high school and junior high teenagers in there for work experience, which is a win-win. I liked hearing that tonight. All right, to start a report on COVID-19, we continue to offer our COVID testing at our park, Sarasota Park. It is now available Monday through Friday, each day of the week from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. New report is, in addition to testing, the COVID-19 vaccinations are also available, but on Wednesday and Fridays only, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Programming update. From now through August, on the last Friday of each month, the kids' movie nights will be presented at the Boyd Center. Parents may drop off children ages 5 through 13 for 3 hours of rec center and movie fun. On the last Friday in March, we held our first movie night of the season. And with over 40 happy kids and even more happy parents, this kickoff was fun at the center. And it was a great demonstration of more rec programming to come. We look forward to more of those. If for those interested, please call the Recreation Department office with any questions, or you can also call and place your name to pre-register. Moving on, the partnership with Ojai Ayso for the Five-A-Side Spring League has brought many happy families to the park. On weekday afternoons for practices and Saturday mornings for the big games, you will find our main field split into 8 smaller fields, resulting in kids and spectators everywhere. And it's a great sight to see on our beautiful grounds and facility. The AYSO Five-A-Side will once again culminate its season on the same Saturday as the Recreation Department's open house. This year is Saturday, May 21st, 2022 from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. More on that later. This month's programming highlight, we would like to highlight our dog training with Lucy Grace. Lucy leads her dog training classes by example. She's currently raising a puppy and using the experience with her participants. Lucy, her expertise in group instruction and knowledge of canines can be heard throughout the park. There are often onlookers and park goers who stop to see the show. Lucy offers first-time beginner and intermediate classes, as well as a focus on manners and obedience for dogs. And it's a great site. She's a great contract instructor to have on our team. Future goals. The summer activity guide for the months of May through August will be available at the end of the month. The activity guide will be printed and mailed to residents, as well as available to scroll through digitally. The department has many wonderful offerings for our community this summer, and we are excited to share them. Please call our office so we may help you plan your summer fun. And as mentioned previously, the open house will take place, the Recreation Department's open house at Ojai Park will take place on Saturday, May 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. This free community event will offer various activities, demonstrations from our rec programs, informational booths, and more. And please join us as we kick off summer Parks and Rec style. We welcome all commissioners and members of the public to join us. And commissioners, if you are able to join us and would like to, please feel free to contact us as we are in the midst of planning. That's my end of report. And thank you once again for your service this month.
Thank you. Any questions for Weston? Thank you for that. And do we have a city council liaison report from Mayor Sticks?
Yes, we sure do. And thank you so much. And first, I apologize. My camera is broken. So I see you and I hear you. And I'm really grateful to all of you for doing the amazing work that you're all doing. And Louise, big shout out to you because you are just an amazing human being. We're so grateful to have you. So yay, Louise. And it's really exciting to hear about the ad hoc committee. Thank you, Chair Taylor, for doing all that research and really weighing in on the community and getting that feedback. It's so important. And thank you, Ryan, for that lovely report on the shade. So important as it gets hotter and hotter. So much appreciated. And thank you for working with the skaters, talking to them. And Louise, thanks for getting out there. Weston, amazing programming and updates. So much gratitude for you for so interesting and exciting. And yeah, really exciting about the Sports Center. I look forward to hearing that at the next council meeting. And Ella, amazing report back. So I look forward to hearing what you and Louise cook up in terms of mentorship. So that is really beautiful. And on a personal note, both of my sons were counselors there at the camp. So it's really such a great program. So I just want to say a big thank you and echo Chair Taylor's appreciation for all the community input. You know, thank you. And it's great to hear from everybody. So my report is just a bunch of appreciation to all of you for your work. So much gratitude. Go Parks and Rec.
I have to give Commissioner Wilson credit. She's sitting on the ad hoc and gave the report on that. And she has been doing, along with Chair Firestone, or Commissioner Firestone, a tremendous amount of work on that accelerated request. So thank you to both of them.
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Sticks. And any other, item number 10, any other commissioner reports or comments on things we haven't discussed tonight? Okay. Oh, yes,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Just a request for the rec department to consider bringing back the Libby Under the Lights events that we had maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where we had some nighttime events at Libby Park. There were lights on the playground so kids could play at night, and we had a food truck out there, and it was a lot of fun. So now that people are kind of back to congregating, it'd be nice to do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy to look at that. That just sounds like a really fun time.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or reports? No, okay. It's hard, we're getting used to this. It's interesting from this perspective here. Okay, future agenda items. I know Luis and I had discussed the new date for the joint meeting. Do we have a new date for the?
Yeah, so if memory serves me right, it is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, May 17th.
Oh, that's a busy week.
Yeah, that would be it. And that's
Yeah.
tentative.
Okay, that's right before your big open house. Is that going to work for you?
Yeah, we'll make it work. Oh,
Luis, your mic.
thank you. Yes, we will make it work.
Okay. Okay, any other requests from the commission? I know we have our standing reports that will probably be pretty lengthy on our next agenda with the pickleball update. Maybe when is that a report to council on the multi-sport court? Could we get an update? We agendize that for next month as well? Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any future agenda items or comments? No? Okay. Well, with that, I will conclude the meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission at 7:43. Thank you. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.